Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. This is Sophania Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, and we're going to part 6 with our interview with Mark Randall.
That's right. This is our concluding segment of the 6-part interview with Mark. It's the longest interview we have done. But in this segment, Mark goes more into what he learned being in the federal penitentiary in Shelton, Oregon, fellowshipping with the Jewish inmates. You know, it's an odd thing. Our Father reaches us wherever he can. He does not stop pursuing us. That's what we gain from Mark's story. And in this case, sending him to prison at the age of 50 so that he could get some things worked out, and also so that the Father could introduce him to that part of his word, which we who have grown up as Christians often are not aware of, and why, Savanya, you and I and so many of our others have come on this path of doing our best to observe the Torah, keep the Sabbath. Why is that important? We heard some of that last week when Mark explained how these observant Orthodox Jews who were inmates in the federal prison welcomed him in. Now, we'll find out in this segment that it did take some doing before they just, welcomed him with open arms. Now, there were questions and legitimate questions. What I appreciate so much about this segment is where we get Mark's testimony of how those who follow Yeshua and those who don't can still find a way to walk in fellowship as followers and believers in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, that should make our Christian programmed soteriology, as in how do you get saved, that should make it just go all, alarms and bells and whistles saying, wait, that can't be. And what Mark is sharing here is something I myself have experienced, and Zephaniah, you too, particularly as our visits to Israel and our time among our observant Jewish brothers and sisters. We find there's something there. There is something of the heart for the God of the Word and the Word of God that we have seen among the most fervent, Spirit-filled Christian believers. It's a thing I can't understand and explain very well. All I can say is it's part of that kingdom dimension that the Father will reveal in due time. In the meantime, my counsel is just what comes out in the interview here. As Yeshua said, those who are not against us are for us. And let's not be doing the enemy's work by creating more divisions. And so let's go on up again to Centralia, Washington. Let's finish our visit with Mark Randall.
I got moved to Tacoma, so I was trying to find some place to go. It was first Sukkot, and my mom was helping me trying to locate some kind of fellowship up there. So I got hooked up with Tim Haig at Beit Hillel, and I was there for a number of years. And through that relationship, though, of those men that I maintain today, I no longer go to Beit Hillel, but some of the relationships that I acquired there, Lord, I can't even believe the men that God has placed in my life, because you got to have other men in your life in order to know how to be a man. And more importantly, you got to have men of God in your life to know how to be a godly man. You need mentors and examples. And so some of the men that I have maintained relationship with today, they've made me, they've been very, instrumental in who I am today. And now I have an amazing wife, which is another story in itself, that I even have this, woman who fears God that, so integral in my life. So I'm 61 years old now. And, this is a 40-year journey. But I can look back before that, Al. I see the hand of the Lord all through my life.
Yeah.
you know. And his mercy, though, how do you relay and explain his mercy and kindness and understanding, his compassion? Well, he says that's what his name is. We get hung up on the Yod He Vav He pronunciations. When God says his name is, faithfulness, kindness, right?
Yeah.
Mercy. That's who God says his name is. And that's amazing to have peace in my life, to have peace and to know that my provisions, my sustenance, my breath that I breathe, because I've done terrible things to my body too, which I'm sure God has healed so many things. The fact that I can even breathe, being around the chemicals and the things that I've done to my life, it's like, I don't think we even know how many things God heals us of. We're asking for healing, we're asking for this, we're asking for that, but God just abundantly blesses us with things that we're not even aware of, unless we really
Amen.
stop to think about it. But yeah, it's crazy. This journey is crazy, and we can't do this alone.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before. I have, we have a lot of theological differences, but we need us. God needs us all as one new man, right? One new man in the Messiah, Jew and Gentile alike. We
Yes.
cannot do this on our own.
Right.
If it wasn't for the Jews, how would we know? How would we even know how to walk out an obedient lifestyle? And I get in these stupid conversations, it seems, all the times with Christians who are really offended. I want to put people under the law. And I'm just like, why is that the conversation? Because I just want to be obedient. God gave me these instructions, and I'm just like, wow, I'm so fortunate that I don't have to figure this out on my own. Right.
Yes.
And so we need the Jews who have been working this out for millennia, right?
Yes.
And it's possible. We talked about this before, Al. This notion that somehow we can't have relationship, that there's this chasm that is not breachable. It is unbreachable when you're talking about when you're coming at it from the, and I've had these conversations with these Jewish brothers that helped grow me up, right? If you're going to come at it from the Jesus perspective, and I'm not going to get hung up on the word here because that's not the point, but the Jesus that they know, the crusading Jesus, the Jesus that wants to cause them and has caused them pain, death, and destruction. This is not open for conversation. But if we talk about the Messiah and who Yeshua is as our salvation, as our help, and as the Messiah who kept Torah, the rabbi, my rabbi who kept Torah, and who I'm learning from, we start coming at it from a different perspective. They're just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, look. And then we can start looking. We can actually break open the scriptures and we can talk about it maybe. And you start, but you got to build a relationship. And so my interaction with these Jewish people, as we talked about, was, in this federal prison, was first a relationship. Of course, it started out of being able to keep the Sabbath, but I wouldn't have been able to they wouldn't allow me to keep the Sabbath with them for very long if there was no relationship. So I didn't try to get in there and convert anybody. There's no reason in talking about it other than the fact that when they tried to ask me to, convert, well, we got to have to talk about this, right? I mean,
right.
Is that going to work? They're like, yeah, because it doesn't matter in the big picture. We stood back to back together over a couple things, a couple times where, it was going to get quite ugly. And I figured that might be it for me too. But I was going to defend my friends, and I was going to take their side, and they would take. So we developed a different kind of relationship than just, doing Shabbat. Yes. It was also life and death, because federal prison was a very hard place. I'm making it sound like it was a big, Torah parade, but it wasn't. It was also very, very hard environment to function as. And if you're going to be friends with the Jews, you're going to have a lot of enemies in
Mhm.
prison. And so we depended on one another. And they knew that I was down to do whatever it takes. And I knew that vice versa. And that developed over time. So then when you develop that close relationship, right, like that, of, especially in a harsh environment, then we can have these hard conversations
Yeah.
because they know who I am and I know who they are. So,
Well, that's just it. It is the relationship aspect.
yes.
And to go back to our creator God, that's what he wants with us.
Mhm.
So, okay, you learned this in federal prison.
Mhm.
And it seems to me it's helped to crystallize all the lessons over the decades prior to that.
Well, it directed my focus.
Yes.
It gave me
Yes.
it gave me a path. So I heard these words from the radio station, right? But actually walking them out, I would have had no idea. So the being in the relationship with these Jewish men as I was, it helped direct my focus.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. I wasn't able to have theological debates with somebody I didn't know anything about.
Right.
And good luck with that. I remember when the rabbi comes up, and he had a very limited amount of time. They harassed him when he came in. The guards did. They didn't want him. They gave him a hard time. So he only had so long to come in, and he didn't have much. It was during Purim. It was during Purim, and he had brought up a little scroll of Esther he was going to read. And he's like, okay, I don't have very much time, but I want you to know that I'm authorized to read this scroll in Hebrew at 90 miles an hour. And he just started reading that thing in Hebrew. I'm just like, oh my goodness. He was like 30. No, he wasn't quite 30. He was like 29. I knew he was 29 because he was talking about the Zohar, which he was not able to start really studying, although he had been.
Uh-huh.
30 is their age requirement for studying Zohar, and he whipped out. But you can't read the scroll of Esther if you make a mistake, you got to start over.
Right.
So he blew through that thing so fast, and it's just like, So I got all these introductions to the feast days and the Sabbath. And our rituals weren't like that would have been at Chabad house, okay?
Right.
Even though they're Hasidics. That was the guys that we were under. I mean, because that was the rabbi was Chabad from Portland, but we didn't have the same. We had the liturgy books, right? We did do the liturgy, but it wasn't the same kind of rituals that you would actually find at a synagogue because we weren't in an environment to be able to carry that out. So I got a lot of introduction to the feast days. That was major, to the feast days, to the Sabbath, and to Torah, and to midrash, real midrash. Boy, it can get ugly, but it's intense. So we had Sephardic. One of them was Sephardic, Spanish. One of them was Sephardic. And then the head Jew there, Brad, he was Ashkenazi. And so you had a difference. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. And here I'm not even Jewish. One of the interesting things that took place, so one of the Jews there, the Sephardic Jews, matter of fact, he had a problem with me. And he was really offended when the rabbi wrapped tefillin with tefillin. That really ticked him off. And so the head guy, Brad, he's like, the Sephardi told me, he says, you need to call the rabbi. They had a rabbi over him in New York, and that's who handled there's a rabbi that deals with all the inmates in a federal prison, right? So we got our own rabbi to talk to. So if the system didn't provide us, if the prison system there didn't provide us, say, kosher food that we liked, he'd just get on the phone to the rabbi. Rabbi call the lawyer call head of Bureau of Prisons and say, hey, this has got to get corrected right now. And they'd be on it. It was just, it was an amazing system that was privileged to fall under. But he called the rabbi and he says, okay, so here's the deal. I got this guy. I got this goyim who's been hanging with us, doing the Sabbath, doing the feast days, and we're not sure what to do with him. He's got a belief in, Jesus as the Messiah, And some of the guys got a problem with him, but he's associating with it. He's linking himself to us. And he said the rabbi's response to him was, hey, if who in their right mind in a prison system that is racist and dangerous to have association with the Jews, who in their right mind would have that association if he wasn't Jewish? He said, I don't know. Maybe he's got Jew in him. I don't know. He said, well, just let him be. If he's for you, he's for you. If he's not against you, he's not against you. Just, you know what? Let him be. Accept him. And if there's no problems, you know what?
That
So,
that gets to one of my favorite sayings of Yeshua in Mark 9, where he says, "Those who are not against us are for us."
Right.
And similar circumstances as well. But
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, the rabbis. So once I get the stamp with the rabbi in New York, it's like it's over. There's no more up for discussion, right? But it was like his response was, "Hey, who knows what's going on here, but if he's wanting to be a part of the Jews there, then let him be."
Amen.
And that was it. So that was never a topic of discussion anymore, and they just accepted him. We had great friendships, and we had so many experiences that that I treasure forever. And I wish that we were able to find a way to, communicate even today. And I don't know what the answer is for that, because, there's no other way to the Father, let's be realistic, other than through Yeshua, right? That's the fact.
Right.
But there's more to that. How do we get to that point? There's more to that. We got to be able to bridge these relationships somehow.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's to all of our advantage, because Al, like I said, how am I? This directs my focus for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
This interaction with these Jews in that place directs my actions for the rest of my life. And if we don't have that interaction, if we don't have that direction, if we don't have that help, and don't get me wrong. I mean, Judaism, come on. I mean, I've studied enough of it to know just how wrong, how messed up it is. No less than messianic messiness or Christianity or any other. We're all messy, right? We're all messed up, and we all depend solely on the mercy and the grace of the Lord.
Yeah.
But he's faithful. He's going to lead us home. He's going to lead us to that place, and then he's going to reset all this for us, and we're going to not have to have these arguments and disagreements. And when we have a king that's sitting on the throne, that we don't even know what it's like to be in a monarchy, do we? I mean,
no.
Can you imagine how that's going to be?
Well, Mark, we could go on for another hour, but this is probably a good place to call it a halt for now. But thank you so much for sharing your story. There's so much in there.
Yeah, there's so much in that journey, but we all have these stories, and something we've been doing. So we have a home group right now. Something we've been doing now is we decided each week we meet on a Rev Shabbat. Each week somebody's going to give their testimony. So we've done this now for the last 3 weeks. If somebody, and then that person gives their testimony, and then they say who they want next to go. These testimonies. I went to Beit Hillel for almost a decade, Al, and that's funny how many people I didn't know. Really, I don't know. I mean, I'm interacting with them, but I really don't know them. So the ones that I've gotten to know, their testimonies, how impactful that's been in our relationship. And I think that we need to be more inclined to hear people's testimonies. How did you come to where you are? Because God is not a box God. He didn't do the things that he guided you through now are night and day to the way that he guided me through, but they're just as relevant and significant. And I think we need to have these conversations so that we, we're so stuck on the practicing of, getting it all right with our, processes of how we do the Sabbath and how we do the feast. I think we need to spend a lot more time relating and hearing people's journey and their stories and their testimonies.
Amen.
I find it very encouraging.
Yes, and that's exactly what we want to do at Reunion Roadmap is collect the stories and share them with the world.
Well, I enjoy being a part of it, Al, and I try to do my best to make sure Reunion Roadmap's really got an amazing amount of content. So, of course, we talked about it. I'm looking to ways to be able to maybe increase that audience through some website interactions. That's the website thing too, Al. That's a whole nother story. How I got to become a web designer. That was a God thing too. That's what I use it for. Right. That's most of the work that I do is with faith-based organizations.
Yeah. And again, thanks for what you do for us at B'naiYosefNA.com and for the many other organizations that you serve. So, Mark Randall, it has been a joy to hear your story. Thanks for sharing with us.
Well, it's been my pleasure, Al.
Here is a new song by Will Spires, Psalm 42. Check out Will's website at willspires.com.
Yahweh, my help. Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the mid-rush portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones. With me is Barry Phillips today. Shalom, brother.
Shalom, David.
So, kind of been reading about the tabernacle recently. Going to kind of jump into it, and I know you have been as well, looking through things with the tabernacle, and it's so rich in its imagery and function, and even just the physical means of it being here, and then look at the spiritual things it's trying to teach us. And there are many people that have spent their entire life studying the tabernacle and the temple, and I'm sure even with all of that and all the multiple people, we still fall short. But there is something I'm kind of looking at today. I think it's kind of interesting, and I'm thinking about the laver, the bronze laver that is there in the tabernacle. This is placed between the altar and the Mishkan, the actual tent itself. So it's between the altar and the tent. So you would go to the altar before you went here. So this I find interesting because this kind of tells us, when you go through the tabernacle, you enter in through one gate, and there's only one way to go in to proceed into the presence. You have to go this way. So you have to stop at the altar, and then you have to stop at the laver, and then you would, continue to move forward. So for me, I'm thinking this is a reminder that we need cleansing before approaching Yahweh. I mean, the purpose of the korbanot that were brought was to go on the altar. Literally means something brought near. So this korbanot would allow us to be represented and brought near to the presence of Yahweh. But yet, to go past that, we still have to make sure that the priest, that their hands and their feet were washed before they could go any further. And this was important. This was a big deal because Yahweh told them, make sure that you wash so you will not die. And so this was an important thing to remind the people of Israel, and reminding us as well as we approach Yahweh. Yes, there's an offering for us that is a means to draw near, but at the same time, that doesn't relieve us of our responsibility to wash our hands and feet,
Right.
which represents the work of our hands and the goings of our feet, our doing and our walking, much like Psalm 24 says. Right? Who shall ascend to he who has clean hands, a pure heart? Well, the ascending the mountain, we have to climb it, walk it. And again, clean hands, pure heart go together. So that's what we're doing. And when we approach, we have to wash the hands and feet. But the interesting thing is when you approach and you lean over it, immediately you're met with yourself. Because not only is it filled with water, but scripture says that the laver was polished, so to speak. It was like a mirror on the inside of it. Matter of fact, it says it was made of bronze mirrors. Right? So it was, when you stand over it and you look at it, it's like a mirror, and then the water, and you would be met with this reflection of yourself. And then looking at your hands and feet again tells us to approach Yahweh. He made the way for us to approach, but we got to be honest with where we're at in ourselves. We have to take a good look at ourselves, because when we go in to minister to Yahweh, to be in his presence there was no playing around. I mean, and you can't lie to him. So we had to know where we were and to continue our approach. And the word, I feel, is that reflection for us as we come and we approach. Yahweh says he'll make us clean. He cleanses us. Yeshua, he makes us clean, doesn't just forgive our sins, doesn't just provide atonement, but he makes us clean so that we can be in his presence. And for those who think, well, okay, well, can I fit my whole body in the laver? No, there were mikvahs that were done aside from this, okay, but kind of like Peter, no, Lord, don't just wash my feet, dunk me in it, kind of thing. That when they approach the word and looking, there is no just little piece of it that's there. The laver of all the specifics that were given in the tabernacle, the laver doesn't say it has to be this size. It has to be, specifically this many cubits by this many cubits and this hold this much water. I saw a rendition of a laver that was given in Solomon's temple, and I was blown away with how huge this thing was.
Oh
And
yeah, he made an enormous one. Of course, Solomon upped the game on everything. It just wasn't one menorah; he had 10 menorahs. So I mean, he had to really up the game on everything and make it super extravagant.
he definitely did a good job of it. But that's where I'm at. That's kind of what I'm kind of baseline thinking in here, Barry. So what are you thinking as far as the labor, all that goes?
Well, the Hebrew term here used for the laver is a kior nechoshet. Both words are significant in what they suggest to us, but the primary thought here, David, is that this is made out of the same covering that goes over the brazen altar, and it's a place of judgment. Scripture says that if we would judge ourselves, it will not be judged. So there is this requirement in our processing of our journey to the presence of the Most High. That is that we have to judge ourselves. We have to take a good look at ourselves, as you've been describing, an honest look. We all want to give ourselves the benefit of a doubt. Problem is, we can't really doubt because we know what's going on the inside. So we just try to cover it over. It's kind of like the person who hasn't bathed in a month and, you think spraying some cologne on is going to cover it. It's not going to work. At some point, you got to get in the water, under the water, and a bar of soap is going to take you a long, long way. Here, you can't pretend, well, I don't see it, or that's not a problem, or it shouldn't infect anyone else. If you see it, you need to deal with it. That's not something we like to hear, but that's the truth. The idea of the first word, kior, it comes from a root koor, Koor, would be a good transliteration. And the idea of that word is a furnace, in particular, a smelting furnace. If one would read Malachi, chapter number 3, it talks about this process of he will be a refiner's fire. The smelting process takes ore that is filled with valuable metal, but also a lot of debris. And the process is heating it up until it becomes molten and the debris floats to the top so it can be skimmed off. So there is that process of our lives of, pressure, trials, circumstances come, and it brings the ugly up to the surface. We say things we normally would not have said because we lost our temper. We act in jealousies that we didn't know that are there because something just kind of flew up into our mind. We get all emotional and breaking apart and shedding tears over something other that shouldn't matter, but we didn't know all that woundedness was in there. Well, the circumstances come to bring it to the top of the surface so you recognize it, submit it, and get it out. It's a healing process, but ultimately you want the pure metal that is desired to be all that is present, and it's at its purest form when it's highly reflective. Again, just like the water reflects, the metal needs to reflect. Nechoshet is an interesting term as well, in that it shares the same root as nachash, which is the Hebrew word that we translate serpent. Whether we would like to admit it or not, there is an entertaining or holding on serpentine lies or philosophies or what Rav Shaul described as strongholds of thought, where we have to tear those things down that he wrote to the Corinthians. So, I mean, it's not popular to consider this in ourselves, but all of us have a place potentially where the serpent can bite. It's interesting. Nachash, the serpent, is just a slight rewording of letters there is nashach, which means to be bitten. So the two go hand in hand. The serpent wants to bite and poison us with serpentine thinking, philosophy, vantage point, perspective. All of that is dealt with here at this simple place of washing your hands and the feet. So it's not about just getting dirt off or removing blood stains. It goes much, much deeper than that. But David, I find it interesting that of all of the procedural steps, the protocols of his presence, it's the laver that we talk the least about, and it could be the most important.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good point. We don't hear too much about it. Everyone wants to focus on the tent itself, the holy place and the most holy place. Of course, the emphasis being in the most holy place where Yahweh dwells, right?
Sure.
But what about the process to get there? I mean, you have to go through the altar. You have to go through the laver. You have to go through the holy place and what was in there and the incense. And I mean, it all has to be there. And so I'm thinking the connection here, in order to get from that place of, let's just say Romans 12, yourself being a living sacrifice, putting yourself there, putting yourself on the altar. Okay, well, that's there. You're laying your life down as he laid his life down. You're laying your life down so that you can be brought into his presence and to do that. That's great, but you still got to go through that water. You still have to go through that wash and that time of reflection. And I like how you put it. The association is judgment is being dealt with there at the altar and at the laver as well. We find the connection between the offering and the blood and the water working together. And of course we can say all this is symbolized in Yeshua, but we always talk about being forgiven, but we don't always talk about the washing, like the washing with the word, like Ephesians 5 tells us to sanctify and to cleanse with the washing of the water by the word, the washing of the word that's there. Sure. The word washes. We always talk about, and not to really get much into theology here, but we talk about the blood washing. No, the blood was given for atonement on the altar. The water's what did the washing.
There's an interesting thought there. Where did they get the water to go into this laver? It would have had to been from the waters coming from the smitten side of the Mount Horeb, or also known as Mount Sinai, which is a picture of the riven side of Yeshua. You're right, blood did come out that atoned, but water also came out. Specifically, I read that the water that flowed out of Yeshua from the beatings that he took and the suffering that he endured, a sac of fluid would have formed around his heart. And when the spear went into his side, it pierced that sac, possibly nicked his heart to some degree as well. Yeshua could have died from a broken heart, and his broken heart bled out and washed out of his side. But David, that's where we're hidden. When Ephesians says that we are to sit together in heavenly places in Messiah Yeshua, how do we get in him? Up under his rib. I mean, you can connect that to the rib that Hava or Eve was made from, and they go a long, long ways with that. But there is a hiddenness, a cleft in the rock, a hole where the water washes out. It is a source of our washing and our cleansing. A lot to think about on that one. And we don't have much time left to think about it.
No, we don't. Although, just to say, he did say he was the living water.
Yeah.
And people who came to him, we see where they said, cleanse me or make me clean. So we do see that again representing in our Messiah. So that does put us out of time for today, Barry. So if anyone wants to continue to hear what's going on, we love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, and topics you'd like to hear about from the future. So you can write us at Reunion Roadmap at B'naiYosefNA.com. So until next time, blessings everyone, and shalom.
Shalom.
From Will Spires, Yahovah. You can hear more of Will's music at willspires.com.
I come unworthy and beating my breast. I am overcome that you took my place. I'm so aware I need your cleansing and grace. Yahovah, I want a clean heart. Yahovah, I want clean hands. Yahovah, I want clean lips. Yahovah, to worship you created me to. This ground is holy as I cross the floor. I see the basin, the water is full. I am reminded of the price I can't pay. So thankful for your water today. Yahovah, I want a clean heart. Yahovah, I want clean hands. Yahovah, I want clean hands. Yahovah, to worship you the way you created me to. Yahovah, I want a clean heart. Yahovah, I want clean hands. Yahovah, I want clean
That was Will Spires, his song Yahovah. And then we had Will's song Psalm 42. And in between, Barry and David telling us about the laver where you wash your hands and feet as you're going in to transact business at the altar, the table of the Lord. But I wanted to go back to Mark Randall's concluding comments and just ask if you had any thoughts on what you have heard from him.
Well, when he was talking about the whole issue of working together with others, despite you not seeing eye to eye, I think that's an incredibly important thing in this time that we're in right now. And for him, the commonality was Shabbat and the festivals. And the Jews that were in the prison there, they came to that conclusion that Mark wasn't there to missionize them, even though he had a different understanding, believing in the Messiah. They had already come. That wasn't his purpose, was to missionize and to push his beliefs, but to join with them in an area of commonality, which was the Shabbat and the festivals. And I think that's sometimes where we miss out on getting to know others that are of a different persuasion than we are, is neglecting to look at those areas of commonality.
That is a good way to look at the subject. And you've mentioned specific areas of practice with Shabbat and the festivals. To the outsider, that might be, well, just the externals. You're just going through the motions. It's not until you've experienced Shabbat, you've begun to enter into that rest of our Creator at His invitation, by the way.
Yes.
That's when it becomes more than just an act. No, this is essential. This is like breath of life stuff. It's the communion with our Creator and Redeemer. This is what Mark was sharing with his Jewish brothers in the prison. The point is, we are connected to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Is that our confession? If that is so, then doctrine, although it's important, becomes secondary. That's how I, as growing up as a Southern Baptist, can have fellowship with my Presbyterian friends who believe something different about baptism, who believe something different about how you come to salvation in Christ. That's how I can have fellowship with my Catholic friends who believe very, very differently, and yet still have the heart for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it's how I can have fellowship with my Jewish friends who we don't even agree on the identity of Messiah, and yet the nature of Messiah and who he represents and how we walk out those things that God has commanded us, which we all expect from Messiah, that we can agree on. And that opens up a whole new level of brotherhood.
Yes. And if you all are in agreement out there in what we are producing here on Reunion Roadmap and you're blessed by it, don't forget to take a look at our website, and there is a donate button, and we'll really appreciate any help you can give us.
And with that, I think we're going to have to wrap up this show because, again, we're out of time. So again, thank you for listening. This is Al McCarn with Savanya Pappas and with Barry Phillips and David Jones. Shavua Tov. Thank you for joining us on the Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.